First place goes to pasta dish number 5.
Yeah!
In the house!
Very nice.
Hang me home, sister!
Woo!
Hey junkies, Man Dullins, hope all is well and you're staying safe. For this episode of Dystopian Dining, we're going to be making stuffed chops. These bone-in pork chops are cut extra thick. As you can see, we're going to season them with our Sicilian spice, which we spoke a little bit about during the Sicilian bean stew episode. I'll include the link to that in the description. We'll be finishing these stuffed chops with the balsamic-based homemade barbecue sauce from Beer Boutique. Absolutely delicious. Part of the frugal lifestyle is repurposing the ingredients you already have on hand. So we still have a good amount of that sauce left over from Scott and Heather over at Beer Boutique. So we're going to repurpose that and finish our dish with it. And you may be asking yourself, all right, cool, so what are you going to stuff the bone-in pork chops with? Well, we're going to clean out our fridge. We got some really lovely looking produce. We got some sweet potatoes, garlic, we have some figs, jalapenos, apple, onion, some great northern beans. Instead of breadcrumbs, we're going to use almond meal for the stuffing. So let's get the stuff chopped up and we'll get started on the stuffing. And first, we'll season the pork chops. Alright junkies, we got these bone-in pork chops seasoned up. We also cut a pocket into them using, of course, our Bakashi steel knife. Really no secrets here. You know, you want to make a slit into the meat. And you want to run your knife as close to the bone as possible. You want to be very careful, especially when you're using a super sharp blade. You don't want the knife to poke out the other end and cut your hand. That's not very ideal. So what I do, I make the little slit here, and then I'll use a spoon and just run it in the inside to help loosen up some of the meat, especially the meat away from the bone. So you have a nice cavity to put your stuffing in. So these are seasoned up. Let's get them in the fridge and we'll get chopping. We got all of our vegetables and fruits cut up. We have our onions, sweet potatoes. I did chop up some cabbage as well. Don't want you junkies to think I pulled the fast one on you. So I did dice up some cabbage, jalapenos, of course that lovely apple, the figs in the back, the California Mission figs, and guest appearance by a delectable piece of smoked gouda. So that was floating around the fridge. We're gonna put that to good use towards the end of us sauteing all these vegetables. We're gonna hit it right before we take it off the stove. And speaking of which, we have our garlic marinating our oil. Cannot emphasize that enough. We touched on it in the Sicilian bean stew video, and we're going to continue to emphasize it, but always make sure your oil, your cooking medium, whatever fat you're sauteing in is well seasoned as well. We have all of our diced goodness sauteing away. We're about to hit the pan with that almond meal because even though it's super fine, we do want the almond meal to get toasted up. So we'll get a good amount of that in now, and we'll continue to saute this up. Also, little junk hack when you're sauteing, you want to make sure your pan that you're using isn't overcrowded. The point of sauteing is, of course, for everything to get a nice color on it. That color is flavor. the sugars in the vegetables, fruits, whatever you're sauteing up are becoming caramelized. So that's really the whole point here. So we're going to let this go much further here. And then we'll hit it with that cheese. You junkies could see how beautiful this looks. Too bad you're not here to smell it. So what I'm about to do is hit this with that smoked gouda using my microplane. Unfortunately, I don't have 3 arms. So let me do that, and then we'll cut back to the smoked gouda grated on top. The smoked gouda is a bit of a strong flavor, a delicious flavor, but it is a bit robust. So, you know, we went light. A little goes a long way, so we went light, and we're going to save the rest of it to finish the dish. Also, what we'll decide to do is hit this with some honey at the last minute. Not only will we use the honey to deglaze the pan, but we'll also use it to add another layer of flavor. Right? Flavor on flavor on flavor. We took our stuffing off the stove. We're going to let it cool down before we stuff our bone-in chops. Just a heads up, you guys could totally do this in advance. Whether days in advance, hours in advance, like we're doing here. It's really no big deal. I mean, what you would do is, you know, do everything we've done so far. Season your pork chops, throw them in the fridge. You're going to make your stuffing, and you would just put this in the fridge. And then when you're ready to go, when you're ready to serve them, you would stuff them, prepare them, and cook them off. The way we're going to cook them is we're going to first saute them in the pan. Make sure the outside gets a nice crust on it. Then we'll take those pork chops and finish them in the oven using our cast iron, as we did with the bone-in ribeye. It has been a few hours. These thick-cut bone-in pork chops need to be stuffed. So we're going to take our mixture that we sauteed up earlier. The beans, figs, apples, onions, peppers, sweet potato. Put that on our spoon and fill those cavities we made with the knife. Really no secret here. Shortcut. It's just put the stuffing on the spoon and jam it in. Once we get these guys stuffed, we'll begin the cooking process. We got our friends stuffed with junk, and now it's time to cook them off. So the way in which we're going to cook them, we're going to hit them with a shallow fry, probably 2 to 3 minutes to each side. The point of that is really just to create a crust on the outside, and then we're going to finish them on our cast iron. You remember our buddy from the bone-in ribeye video. So we got the oven cranked up, and we'll get cooking real soon. So a lot of you junkies ask, you know, how do I know what goes with what, which ingredients to use with which? There's really no science behind cooking, right? When you're baking, yes, that is most definitely a science. You want to make sure all your ingredients are, you know, exact, accurate. There's very little margin for error. Cooking is completely different. It's not unlike a musician, a DJ, or any other creator or artist. You just got to go with your intuition. And that intuition is really the result of life experience and failure. Right? If you don't mess up, then you don't learn. So when I'm scouring my fridge, looking at what vegetables and fruits I have laying around, you just know what goes with what. And if you do make a mistake, you could always either add or subtract something to make up for that mistake, right? If something's too spicy, too hot, you're going to mitigate that with sugar, something sweet. You could use honey. Cumin is a great ingredient, is a great spice to use to counteract heat. But the point being, there's no science. This is very difficult to mess up. So really, you got to be fearless when you're cooking. So we killed the heat. Before we get these guys in the oven, we're going to hit them with that homemade barbecue sauce made by Beer Boutique. Big love and shout out to Scott and Heather. So we're going to evenly coat our bone-in pork chops. Use that barbecue sauce as a glaze, which it essentially was. Like I said, is definitely vinegar based, balsamic vinegar. So we're going to get this on and finish these off in the oven. We got these in the cast iron, and it's time for them to hang out. Our stuffed chops are done. Time to take them out and plate them. Alright, junkies, we have everything plated up. As you can see, we have our 2 thick cut stuffed chops. We have the stuffing. We had some extra, so I figured, why the heck not? We'll just use that as a side. We finished our pork chops with a little bit of the smoked gouda shredded over top. And our beverage will be from Overflow. Again, one of my most favorite breweries. I was very fortunate that Troy, Jess, and Ryan decided to open up one day this week. So I was among the first to run there and get myself a crowler of their Pilsner. You could always tell the quality of a brewery by their Pilsner. It's one of those styles that, whereas simple, it's not the easiest to brew. There's very little flavoring or production crutches that you could hide behind. It's either good or it's not. And Overflow happens to make an outstanding Pilsner, along with their other styles that they specialize in, such as sours. They also make a really awesome brown ale, which I typically get. Either the Watson brown ale. There's a few of them in the Watson family. They make a pistachio brown ale, which is exemplary as well. Or I get their Pilsner. So, stay safe, junkies. Big love, shout out to Beer Boutique for that barbecue sauce. As always, to Robots Will Kill, Chris, Beer Canvas, and wash your junk. Keep safe. Bye. Forgot to show you junkies the actual stuffing. So there you go. You see the stuffed chop up close and personal. Stay well, guys.